Tarin stood at the window of the small transport ship, watching as the massive research station came into view. It floated in orbit around Velenine, a blue and green planet far from Earth. The station looked like a silver ring with towers rising from its edges. Lights blinked gently, and long docking arms reached out like the arms of a quiet giant. He had seen pictures of it before, but seeing it with his own eyes made it feel real. This would be his new home for 6 months. Tarin was a technician skilled in data systems, signal decoding, and repairs. He wasn't a soldier or a leader. He didn't seek adventure. He liked quiet work and solving puzzles. When he had signed up to work on the Velenine project, he thought it would be just another job. He was wrong. Inside the station, everything felt clean, quiet, and cool. The walls were silver gray. The lights were soft. He walked down the hallway, following the guide drone that hovered ahead. It beeped quietly and blinked a soft blue light. Human technician, Tarin, the drone said, you have been assigned to Research Bay 4. You will report to Leilari scientist, Smileda. Tarin nodded. Even though he knew the drone didn't care. The Leilari were not like humans. They were thin, tall beings with smooth skin that shimmered like glass under light. Their faces were calm and still. They spoke clearly, but without emotion. Most humans found them cold and distant. Tarin had never met one before. He reached Research Bay 4. The door opened with a quiet hiss. Inside, the room was filled with machines, glowing screens, and humming energy fields. In the middle stood a Leilari. She turned to face him. Her eyes were large and pale silver. Her skin was light blue. She wore a long coat with shining symbols running down the sleeves. You are the human called Tarin, she said. Yes, Tarin replied. You must be Smileda? She gave a small nod. Correct. Her voice was soft but firm. There was no warmth in it, but no anger either. Just simple, clean words. Tarin set down his bag and looked around. Where should I start? Smileda pointed to a side console. Begin with decoding the transmissions from the surface. Use the data from the last 2 cycles. Tarin moved to the console and sat. His hands worked quickly, pulling up files, adjusting filters, cleaning static from the signals. It was just like the training. As he worked, he felt her eyes on him. At first, he thought he was imagining it, but every time he looked up, Smileda was standing still. Watching, she didn't speak. She didn't move. Just watched. He tried to ignore it. Maybe this was normal for Leilari. Maybe she was checking. His work powers passed. They barely spoke, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. Tarin liked quiet, and Smileda didn't ask silly questions or waste time. But something felt strange. At one point, he dropped a tool. When he picked it up, he saw Smileda tilting. Her head, just slightly. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes blinked once, slowly. Is everything all right? Tarin asked. Yes, Smileda said. You reacted with surprise. Was the object harmful? No, asked checked. The next morning, Tarin entered Research Bay 4. The air felt cool and still, just like before. Machines hummed softly, and the lights above gave off a soft white glow. Smileda was already standing at the main console, her long fingers tapping. On the glass panel with perfect rhythm, you are on time, she said without turning around. Tarin gave a small smile. I tried to be. She turned to face him and nodded once. Consistency is noted. They began working on the transmissions again. The data came from ancient devices buried on Velenine. These machines were thousands of years old and still sent signals into space. No one knew who built them, but the Leilari wanted to learn. Tarin's job was to clean the noise from the signals and find any patterns. Smileda analyzed the patterns for meaning. It was good teamwork, quiet and focused. But today, something was different. Smileda stood closer than usual. Not uncomfortably close, but enough that Tarin could feel her presence. Her large silver eyes kept glancing at him, watching his hands, his face, even how he sat. After a few minutes, Tarin cleared his throat. Is something wrong? No, she said. I'm observing. Tarin blinked. Observing what? Your reactions, she replied. To sound, to light, to failure. To success. He looked at her, puzzled. Why? She tilted her head. Slightly, just like before. Human behavior is complex. I wish to understand it better. Tarin chuckled. You're studying me. Yes, Smileda said without hesitation. Is that uncomfortable for you? A little, he admitted. I will adjust my methods, she said simply. But she didn't stop observing. She simply became more careful. When he smiled, she would blink slowly, as if trying to understand the meaning behind it. When he sighed, she would mark something down on her small data slate. He even caught her copying his movements, sometimes resting her hands on her hips the way he did, or leaning forward when reading a screen. Later that day, they moved to a different room, the observation room. It was larger and quieter, with one glass wall that looked out into space. Stars shimmered beyond, and the curve of Velenine floated below. They sat. Tarin leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. Hours of looking at waveforms and signals had made his head feel heavy. The observation room was silent, except for the soft hum of the machines. Across the table, Smileda sat straight, her pale, silver eyes fixed on him. You are tired, she said. Tarin nodded. A little. My eyes get sore after long hours. Smileda stood up and walked toward the viewing window. The stars outside shone like tiny diamonds in the dark. She placed one hand on the glass and stared out. You do not have internal eye filters, she said. That is unfortunate, Tarin chuckled. We humans aren't built for space work the way the Leilari are. We just do our best. Smileda turned around and walked back to the table. She studied him for a few moments, then did something unexpected. She smiled. It wasn't a perfect smile. It looked a little forced, a little stiff. Her lips curved slightly upward, but her eyes didn't change. Still, it was clear what she was trying to do. Tarin blinked. Was that a smile? Yes, she said. I have been watching the facial movements humans make when they are pleased. I attempted to replicate the expression. Tarin was quiet for a second, unsure what to say. Then he laughed gently. Well, that was a good first try, he said. A little practice, and you'll be smiling like a pro. Smileda didn't react at first. Then she tilted her head and asked, What does like a pro mean? It means like someone who's very good at something. She gave a small nod, as if recording the phrase in her mind. Tarin leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. Why are you so interested in human expressions? Most Leilari avoid emotions. Smileda did not answer right away. She placed both hands on the table and looked directly at him. I am curious, she said. Emotions give humans great strength. They form connections. They fight for each other. They care. The Leilari value logic, but logic does not comfort us. It does not inspire us, I believe. Your kind is something valuable. Tarin was surprised. Leilari rarely spoke about feelings. They were known for their emotionless nature, always calm, always focused. Are you allowed to study this kind of thing? He asked. No, she said simply. It is not part of my assigned research. That made Tarin pause. Then why are you doing it? Smileda hesitated. For the first time, her voice softened. Because I want to understand what it means to care. There was a long silence between them. Tarin didn't know what to say. Smileda returned to her seat, folding her hands neatly. I have also noticed, she added, that your responses change when I stand close, when I speak softly, and when I mimic your expressions. Tarin shifted slightly. You've been tracking that. Yes, she said. I have a separate file. Subject: Human reactions to social cues. Tarin raised his eyebrows. So, I'm your experiment? No, Smileda said. You are my partner in research, but I am also using your behavior as a guide. Your reactions help me learn. He smiled again, more amused than annoyed. Well, if you ever publish a paper on human facial expressions, don't forget to thank me. I will. Smileda replied with perfect seriousness. Then she did something again. She tried to smile. This time, it looked a little better. Her lips curved more naturally, and her eyes narrowed just a bit, like she was starting to understand what a real smile looked like. Better? She asked. Tarin gave her a thumbs up. Much better. They returned to their work. decoding the latest signal. It was still unreadable, filled with broken tones and strange patterns, but there was something familiar about the rhythm. It almost sounds like music, Tarin said. Smileda tilted her head. Music, yeah, repeating sounds, like a beat. Maybe it's a form of art. Art is not useful in Laylar's society, she said. Tarin smiled again. It isn't ours. For the rest of the day, they worked side by side, exchanging small thoughts and quiet looks. Smileda didn't smile again, but Tarin could tell she was thinking about it, studying it, feeling it, and he couldn't help but wonder, was Smileda still just observing, or was she starting to feel something gas-checked? Tarin sat quietly at his desk in the observation room. The decoded signals were playing softly through a speaker, strange, rhythmic sounds that reminded him of old radio waves from Earth. Outside the wide glass window, Velenine's curved surface glowed peacefully in the distance. He glanced across the room. Smileda was standing near the display screen, staring at the wave patterns. Her back was straight, her hands behind her. She had barely moved in the last few minutes. Tarin stretched, trying to relax his shoulders. You've been quiet today, Smileda turned to face him. I have been analyzing the emotional patterns of our previous conversations. Tarin smiled lightly. Emotional patterns? That sounds serious. She nodded. Yes, it is. There was a pause. Smileda took a slow step forward, then another. She stopped just a few feet from him and looked directly into his eyes. I have a question, she said. Go ahead. She blinked once, then spoke in a soft but clear voice. Do you find me appealing, human? Tarin froze. The room suddenly felt warmer. The sound of the decoded signal faded into the background. He looked at Smileda, unsure if he had heard her correctly. Appealing, he repeated, his voice unsure. Yes, she said. Attractive, interesting. Do you feel drawn to me? Tarin's mind raced. He had never expected this, not from Smileda. She was logical, focused, and often strange in her questions, but this one was personal. Why would you ask that? He asked carefully. Smileda did not break eye contact. I have been studying human emotional response for many weeks. I have watched how your face changes, how your heart rate shifts, how your voice sounds when we speak. My data suggests that when I come closer or copy your behavior, your reactions change. Tarin swallowed. You've been tracking all that. Yes, she said. And I believe I now understand something new. Your people form connections. Through more than words, you look at others and decide how you feel based on closeness, behavior, and kindness. She took one more step closer. I want to understand this feeling, she said, and I believe I must ask honest questions to do so. Tarin looked down for a moment, then back at her. You've changed since I met you, he said slowly. You used to just stand still and watch everything quietly. Now you smile, at least you try. You talk more. You ask things you're not ordered to ask. He gave a soft chuckle. You even laugh sometimes, not perfectly, but it feels real. Smileda's face remained calm, but something in her eyes changed, softer, more open. So she asked again, do you find me appealing? Tarin stood up slowly. He didn't move closer or step back. He just stood there, thoughtful. I don't know what to say, he admitted. I wasn't expecting that question. But, yes, I find you interesting. Very much. Smileda tilted her head slightly. Interesting is not the same as appealing. No, it's not, Tarin said. But I mean it in a good way. You're smart, curious, and trying to understand something that's not easy, not for your people. Anyway, that takes courage. Courage, she repeated softly. Yes, Tarin said. You're not just running programs or doing what the council expects. You're trying to feel something that matters. Smileda lowered her gaze for the first time. It wasn't weakness, it looked like thoughtfulness. I do not know if what I feel is correct, she said. Sometimes I wonder if I am broken. Tarin gently shook his head. You're not broken, Smileda. You're just changing. There was silence between them for a moment. Then Smileda looked up again. I will add this. After their conversation, Tarin and Smileda didn't speak for the rest of the day. They continued their work in silence, focusing on the signals, typing notes, and adjusting settings. But the quiet between them was different now, heavier, like something unspoken was floating in the room. The next morning, Turing came to the lab early. He hoped Smileda would arrive soon. He had thought about her question all night. "Do you find me appealing?" It echoed in his mind again and again. He didn't know how to answer it completely. Yes, he liked working with her. Yes, she had changed. And yes, something about her made him curious, maybe even drawn to her in a strange, soft way. But she was still Leilari, still from a race that didn't believe in emotions the way humans did. When Smileda walked into the room, she didn't look at him. She went straight to her console and began typing. Turing cleared his throat. "Good morning." "Morning," protocol acknowledged. She replied, eyes on her screen. Turing blinked. That wasn't like her. Not anymore. She had stopped using cold words like acknowledged weeks ago. He stood up and walked to her. "Are you all right?" "I have reevaluated my behavior," Smileda said. "I have decided to limit emotional testing. It is not efficient." Turing frowned. "What? Why?" She turned to him. Her face was calm, but her voice was quieter than usual. "Your response to my question was not clear. It caused confusion. In my own logic, I must return to standard methods." Turing felt a sharp sting in his chest. "So you're just stopping?" "Yes," she said. "I will remove the emotional study log from my research files." It was not approved by the council anyway, but it meant something, Turing said. "You were learning, changing. Isn't that worth something?" "I do not know anymore," she said softly. Perhaps it was only air. Turing looked at her, hurt and confused. Then he turned and walked away, back to his corner of the room. He didn't feel like decoding anything now. His mind was heavy, his heart unsettled. For the next few days, things between them changed. Smileda became quiet again, just like when they first met. She only spoke about the work. No more questions, no more smiles, no more quiet laughter. Turing missed the version of her that had tried to understand humans. One evening, while returning to his quarters, Turing passed two Leilari scientists in the hallway. They didn't see him, but he heard them speaking. "She is unstable. Emotional signs are increasing. Yes, the council is aware. She has been warned. Perhaps reset will be required." Turing's eyes widened. They were talking about Smileda. He rushed back to his room and opened his tablet. He searched the Leilari network and found a private report marked confidential but not locked. Smileda's name was in the title. Emotional deviation. Subject, Smileda. The file explained that she had been acting differently, asking strange questions, showing signs of emotional influence. The Leilari Council did not approve. She had broken research rules. Turing closed the file with a tight jaw. They were going to shut her down. Not kill her, but Ray. Turing couldn't sleep that night. He lay on his small bed in his quiet room, staring at the ceiling. The report about Smileda kept replaying in his mind. The words were cold, but clear. Subject, Smileda has shown emotional deviation. Possible reconditioning required. Reconditioning. That meant wiping part of her memory, removing everything she had learned about emotions, about connection, about him. He sat up, swung his feet to the floor, and stared at the tablet on the table. He had to do something. The next morning, Turing went straight to the council chamber. The Leilari Council didn't usually speak with humans directly, but he didn't care. He pressed the call button and waited. A voice answered from the screen. "State your reason for contact." "This is Technician Turing from Research Bay 4, he said. "I want to speak about Scientist Smileda." There was a long pause. Then the screen showed a large room, smooth and silver like the rest of the station. 3 Leilari Council members appeared. They stood tall, with robes marked by glowing patterns. "Proceed," one of them said. Turing took a breath. "I read your report," he began. "You're planning to recondition Smileda, but I believe that's a mistake." One of the counselors narrowed their eyes. "That information was private. You have accessed it without permission." "I don't care," Turing replied. "You're planning to erase something that isn't wrong, it's growth. The second counselor spoke. She has broken protocol. Leilari do not experiment with emotions. Emotions lead to failure. No. Taran said firmly, emotions lead to understanding, to connection. She's trying to learn something new. Isn't that what scientists are supposed to do? There was silence. She hasn't harmed anyone. She hasn't failed her work. In fact, she's been more focused than ever. All she did was ask questions. She smiled. She cared. The third counselor raised a hand. And what is your connection to her? Taran hesitated. We work together. That is all. He paused again. I respect her. I trust her. I think she's becoming someone who can bridge the space between your people and mine. The counselors looked at each other. After a moment, one of them said, we will allow one final test. Taran leaned forward. What kind of test? You and Smileda will complete the final decoding project together, if it is successful. And if she remains stable, she will not be reconditioned. But if she shows signs of further emotional behavior, the reset will proceed. Taran nodded slowly. Then we'll finish it, together. Later that day, Taran found Smileda in the observation room. She stood quietly at the window, hands behind her back. You spoke to the council, she said without turning. Yes, Taran said. They're giving us one last chance. If we finish the project and you stay calm, they'll let you continue. Smileda turned her head slightly. And if I do not remain calm, they'll erase everything. He said, your emotional progress, your memories of me, all of it. She was quiet for a long time. I do not know if I can pretend, she said. I do not want to lose what I've learned. Taran stepped beside her. Then don't pretend. Just be yourself. We'll figure it out. She looked at him. I am afraid. Taran Riachetis checked. The lab was quiet as Taran and Smileda worked on the final decoding task. The strange signal from Velenine's surface kept playing on a loop, soft pulses of sound, mixed with broken patterns. It was like a song with missing notes. Taran adjusted the filters, trying to clear the noise. Smileda studied the waveform, watching how the rhythm repeated every few seconds. I believe this part, she said, pointing to the screen, is not random. It follows a pattern used in early Leilari communication. Taran leaned closer. Can you match it with anything in your database? Yes, old dialects, long before space travel, before emotion was removed from society. He glanced at her. Your people had emotions before. Smileda nodded. Yes, many centuries ago. But it was removed from us. We were told emotion made us weak, unstable. We became only logical, only efficient. Taran was quiet for a moment. Then he said, maybe that's why this signal matters. Smileda looked at him. Taran continued, maybe this is a message from a time before logic ruled everything. Maybe someone wanted it to be heard now by someone like you. Smileda said nothing, but her eyes seemed brighter. Together, they pieced the signal apart. Hour by hour, they rearranged the missing parts. They filled gaps, corrected distortions, and finally rebuilt the full message. At last, the signal was ready. Taran pressed the playback button. A soft voice filled the lab, not a human voice, not Leilari, but something old and full of feeling. The translation ran across the screen. To those who forget how to feel, to those who live only by numbers and rules, remember us. Remember connection. Remember care. Without feeling, life becomes quiet. Without love, progress has no meaning. The room was completely still. Taran felt something rise in his chest, something warm and deep. He looked at Smile. She was standing straight, but her face had changed. Her eyes were not cold. They shimmered softly, like the stars outside. Her lips trembled just a little. Smileda, he asked gently. She turned to him, and then slowly she smiled. It was not like before. Not stiff, not copied. It was soft and true. Her eyes held warmth. Her face relaxed. Taran stepped closer. Are you okay? She nodded. I understand now. What do you understand? She looked out the window, where the stars blinked silently beyond the station. I understand that emotion is not a mistake. It is a path, a bridge between two minds. It gives meaning to facts. It gives life to learning. I have felt it, and I do not want to forget. Taran smiled. You won't forget. We did it. The council will have to see. Just then, a soft tone rang through the room. A message from the council appeared on the screen. Project success confirmed. Emotional signs detected. Review in progress. There was a long pause. Taran held his breath. Finally, the screen displayed a final message. Reconditioning cancelled. Scientist Smeleta may continue her work. Observation will remain. Taran let out a breath of relief. You're safe. Smeleta turned to him. I'm grateful. He chuckled. You even used the word grateful. That's progress. She gave him another gentle smile. I'm still learning. They stood there in silence for a moment, looking at the stars. Then Taran said, So, what now? Smeleta replied, Now, we study together. We explore. And perhaps we feel. Taran nodded slowly. I'd like that. She reached out her hand. Then let us begin. Taran took it. And in the quiet of the stars, two very different beings stood side by side, no longer just a scientist and a subject, but something more, something new, something truly human and truly Leilari.